So welcome to week 3. We're already in week 3. Can you believe it? Almost halfway through. And hopefully it's going well and you're having some good practice formally and informally. And I'll ask you in a minute to share a little bit of how that's going, probably on the chat because we're a pretty large group again. But also remember, that's why I've asked you to buddy up and to be able to talk to somebody in the class who's also trying to fit this in. And that's kind of the hardest part that I think most people realize, that fitting this into your daily routine is the most difficult to really get it to be a practice. Okay. So this week though, is a little bit where, last week we talked about the body and mindful movement. The week before, simply sitting and the breath meditation, the focus on the breath. Now we turn a little bit to stress and how this can really become useful to us in coping with stress. And to me, it's not like a stress management technique in a sense. It's really, if you begin to mindfully notice, and you'll see what I'm talking about with thoughts, emotions, and sensations, how stress affects you in those areas. It gives you a chance to kind of step back from stress, to kind of not be triggered by some of the reactions that automatically do that push our buttons in a sense. So that's kind of the beauty of it. And a lot of people have talked about that is helpful to them, both at work and at home. And there's a lot to this. So I'm going to try to go through a bunch. Next week, we're going to talk also about mindfulness of emotions. And this will also be part of what's that you'll see. Of course, emotions have a lot to do with how we relate to stress. And so next week will sort of be a continuation. So let's do our first pause, and this is a 3-minute breathing space. And so for this, you can do this in any position. You can do this sitting, standing, moving, and you'll see there's even a briefer version of it. I'll show you in a few slides. But for now, just simply sit quietly, and just the first step is to actually acknowledge your inner experience and ask yourself the question, what is my experience right now? What is happening to me, or what's going on with me right now? And you can close your eyes if you haven't already done that. You don't have to, though. This is the kind of thing that can be done on the fly. But what's going on inside me right now? And as we reflect on that question, you might notice what thoughts are going through the mind, what thoughts come up about, what's happening in your life today, or what's led up to now, or what you've got to do in the near future. What thoughts? Just notice thoughts simply as mental events, just being aware of thoughts. Then also in the same way, notice what feelings are present. Just notice, just observe. Don't follow up on a particular feeling. Just be aware of what's here in your emotional state right now. Might be a number of feelings. And then what body sensations do you notice? What's going on in the body? Perhaps quickly scanning the body, just seeing if there's any sensations that stand out to you. Tightness or bracing or relaxation or whatever it might be, just acknowledging those sensations. And next, I'll ask you to bring your attention to your breathing. So for a minute or so, let's just focus on the breathing like we've done before. Just feel the sensations of each breath. Wherever you feel it, doesn't matter where, just feel the breathing. Know when you're breathing in, know when you're breathing out. Let the breath be your anchor to the present moment. And then the third and final step is to simply expand your field of awareness so that you can open up your awareness and feel your whole body. Notice your whole body where it is, sitting, feel the whole body breathing, be aware of your posture, your facial expression, any sensations, maybe even being aware of the space around your body. And then finally, as best you can, just bring this expanded awareness to the next moments of your day. And that is the 3-minute breathing space. And it's a great way to kind of get centered, get grounded. As you can see, there were 3 quick elements. Noticing the state you're in right now, thoughts, feelings, body sensations, breathing for a bit, and then expanding your awareness and then moving on. It's really that simple. And this is going to be part of our practice this week, and that you will be doing this on a routine basis. So this is something you can try every day. Maybe find a certain time to do this. Also, you can do it in response to a stress trigger. This is a great thing to do. And there's another thing called a 1-minute breathing space called stop that can be done also, which I'll show you in a bit. So, so that's that. So let me ask you, how's the home practice going? Maybe you can use the chat feature and just let me know. I see a number of you put in your names for attendance. That's great. If you haven't done that, put in your name for attendance. A lot of you have done that. Great. But also just let me know how it's going. Last week I asked you to do the body scan and some mindful movement. So, you know, what worked? What didn't? What was difficult? What did you have success with? A lot of names coming in, so for the attendance. But also, like, give me an idea of how your practice was last week. So you've got sort of the formal practice of a body scan, the mindful movement, mindful walking, stretching, that can be considered formal or informal in a sense, kind of as to how you do it. Formal is going great. Informal, not so much, just harder to remember. Good. Well, that's actually, I think, a good sign, because, you know, if you do the formal on a regular basis, the informal will begin to pop up. And the informal, you're right, you do have to kind of be mindfully aware, to remind yourself to do the informal practice, but try to make a concerted effort to do that too. Didn't realize how out of touch I felt with my own self. Yeah, that's my own physical self. And that really is one of the points of that whole practice of being much more aware of what's going on in the body. And you'll see it's really woven through many mindfulness practices. So good, keep it up. Keep noticing what's going on in the body. And actually, the other thing about that is to try to notice sometimes we bring judgments to that. We have opinions about either a pain, it's something that you've been living with, you know, some discomfort. You know, for me, I know the older I get, the more pains I experience. So it's harder to be non-judgmental about those things. You might notice judgments and opinions you have about just your body in general, the way it looks, the way you think it should be? I mean, all those kinds of things pop up. So here's another good one. The breathing exercise helps me fall asleep and my mind is racing. Yeah, this is really a good way to slow the mind down and specifically to get out of the head into the body. And that's, I think, one of the big benefits of body awareness and doing those practices. Informal is good when I remember. Good. Okay. I know it's not easy. Going well, but didn't get to it every day. And that's probably happening to a lot of you. So just do the best you can and try to make it a little bit more than you did last week. Try to build in those practice times so that it becomes more of a habit. Been trying to take time each morning before I start my day to take time, sit and quiet and get ready for the day. Yeah, that's wonderful. And I hope that's been helpful. I hope you noticed that it can help us to, go into the day with maybe a more centered and calm mind. Took advantage of the shuttle bus ride, did a body scan. That's perfect. Integrate any of these practices into those things that you're already doing. I work primarily from home now, so it's a completely different. But when I was commuting, I really did do mindful driving. And I'm obviously not closing my eyes, but you can really bring mindful awareness to any activity. So it could be exercise or walking or driving or shopping or whatever it is throughout the day. So try to weave that in. Mindful walking, good. Somebody's trying that. I think that's it's such a great everyday practice. Allow me to drop my awareness down out of my mind and allow me to feel my feet and discover how much room is in my body. Yeah, yep, that's it. Your feet are a great anchor. I've been stretching daily, good, and meditating before I start my day. Yeah, that's a good process. It's a good way to start the day. Did body scans a lot last week at my desk. Good, great, good. I'm loving that. You can bring it into your work life and use that as a mindful break. That's fantastic. I'm finding it very difficult to focus on one thing as opposed to a dozen at a single point in time. Yeah, and I bet, again, a lot of us can relate to that, we're so used to multitasking and doing so much at one time that this is really asking us to change the way that we are paying attention and the way that we are doing stuff. So keep working at it. What you're gonna find is that the more you practice both the informal and the formal, but especially the formal practice, you keep coming back to the focus of your anchor. And that's that retraining. And so what's going to happen, hopefully, is that in the midst of your day, even though there's lots of distractions and the mind is pulled in 20 different directions, you'll be able to focus a little bit better. I use mindfulness during yoga. Excellent. I found it easier to slow my mind during movement. Good. And better connection to myself. Yeah, I mean, that's it in a nutshell. Body scan before bed. A lot of people find the body scan before bedtime is a great way to relax and get out of the busy mind. Bedtime has been another one. Bedtime helps to relax. Good. Mention while driving. Would you share some tips on how to do that? Yeah, what I'll do is there is a link on the meditation page that has all of the meditations, and it does I guide you through mindful driving, but I also have a script, and I'll try to remember to attach that. We do in our fifth session, we talk about a lot of practical techniques for mindfulness at work, and that's included in that. So you'll get that there as well. All right, great. Thanks, everybody. Those are fantastic observations. So let's move on into the lesson. And so the mini lesson of what we're trying to do with stress is interrupt the cycle of stress. So something stressful happens, there's a little trigger, we get a little bit of a fight or flight response, we react automatically. That's the stress cycle, right? So what we want to do is bring some relaxation to that, to learn to pause. And that's what the 3-minute breathing space and also the 1-minute breathing space is all about, so that we have some space. We have a little bit of time to, instead of letting that thing push our buttons, that we can just, oh, wait a second now, hold on, take a breath, even if it's not going through the whole thing that I did with the 3-minute breathing space, but even if it's just slow down, take a deep breath or two, and then, okay, what's the next best way for me to respond right now? So it's the difference between reacting automatically on autopilot and responding thoughtfully, mindfully, skillfully. So the quote here, we are not troubled by things, by those stressful things, but by the opinions we have about things. So we're also going to talk about how mindfulness, or rather how stress gets our thoughts going. And the whole meditation today is going to be on that. And that's a great way to kind of deal with that as well. So this is this slide here, a couple of quick things. I'll send this as a handout also. There's actually a good article that fleshes out each of these tips. And just as a way to kind of build them into your practice. Like we've said, practicing daily, even if it's just for a minute or 2 or 3 is fine. It's more about the frequency at this point. Attitude is everything. So attitude is, this is from Tara Brach, and she writes that the biggest reason people quit meditation is because they judge themselves for how they are practicing it. And so we don't want to turn this whole thing into another should, right? That's why it's helpful to bring up, what's your intention? When you sit to meditate, what's your intention? Do you want to settle down? Do you want to relax? Do you want to focus? Do you want to deal with stress? Do you want to just take a breather? What's your intention? And be kind to yourself, try not to be, if you notice that you're being hard on yourself. Oh, I can't do this. I can't focus. This is difficult. I'm feeling restless, bored. All those things are common. When you notice those things surfacing, that's the attitude part. Be kind to yourself. Let it go. Just remember, this is something that you're practicing. You're getting better at. The other one I'll call out is keep coming back. So she writes, while quieting the mind supports meditation, there is a misconception that the goal of meditation is to get rid of thoughts. And we can't do that. It's really impossible. The mind secretes thoughts like the body secretes enzymes. So don't be at war with thoughts. Instead of judging when you find that you've been distracted, bring an interest and friendliness to the shift from thoughts to presence. So that's why the informal practice is important. You begin to realize, oh, I'm really lost in thought, even while you're doing normal everyday things. And that's okay. That's to be expected. When you notice that, then you bring yourself back to the breath or your body or something, some anchor. And, select an anchor for presence number 5 here. Those are the 2 basic anchors that you can use. You can also use sounds as an anchor, but the breath and our body are 2 good, very stable anchors that are always with us. The other thing, which we'll kind of go into in a minute, on an exercise that she calls RAIN, what's happening inside of me right now, and can I be with this? Those 2 questions. That's kind of where again, it helps us with stressful situations. So what I'd like to do now is give you another quick quiz, a stress test, okay? If you've been in my classes before, particularly around stress, you might have seen this, but this is based on a study they did. And the next slide, I'm going to show you 2 dolphins jumping out of the water. And they're identical. But in this study, what they found is that the more differences you see between the dolphins, the more stress you're experiencing. Okay, so I'm going to count down to 3, 2, 1, and I'll show you the next slide. So you ready? Focus on the next one. 3, 2, 1. I know, kind of dumb, kind of silly, right? But the point of this is, stress can be overwhelming. Stress can be very discomforting. But if we can learn to keep our sense of humor and be a little lighthearted about it and realize that we can be curious and bring that attitude of discovery of how that stress is impacting on us, that can be helpful. So thanks for my corny joke there, for laughing. I appreciate that. So what we want to do is we want to relax. We want to do a variety of relaxation. There's a lot of things you can do. I'm not going to go into these in detail, but these are just things that are out there that I'm sure you've heard of. Deep breathing, for example. I know some of you do yoga and stretching, Tai Chi. Those can be very relaxing. Progressive muscle relaxation. If your body is really tense, what you do with this is you progressively go through different muscle groups. You tense them for about 5 or 6 seconds. You hold the tension and then you release it. And you just really notice that relaxed feeling when you release it. And you go through the whole body. So you can start with the forehead and around the eyes and the jaw, shoulders, arms, chest, belly, all the way down to your feet, and progressively, slowly, not that quickly like I just did, slowly just tense them up and then relax them. It's very, very relaxing. Guided imagery can be helpful, and quick relaxation techniques on the job. These are just all different ways to relax yourselves. And this is the stop thing that I was telling you about. This is the 1-minute breathing space. So all it is the S stands for stop. Take stock when you're feeling stressed or unsettled. And you just ask yourself, what's going on right now? Just like we did before. Take a mindful breath, feel a nice, full, deep breath. Just really feel the breath, and then be open and observe what thoughts, what feelings, what sensations are going on in the body. And then the P is you expand your awareness, again, like we did, and you proceed with new possibilities. So that's the 1-minute breathing space. That's something you can do, and this is the part of the informal practice, folks, for this week. That's something you can do a lot of times throughout the day. Anytime you notice feeling a little bit stressed, either do 1 or the 3 minutes. Either one will work. Now, this is something else. This is something that Tara Brach teaches as well. It's called RAIN, and it's related to what's going on inside me right now, and can I be with this? RAIN, I think, is a good technique for when there is something that's going on that's a little bit more complex, more of an emotional tangle, if you will. And all it is the first 2 steps are, basic mindfulness. Recognize what's happening. So you recognize, you're having something stressful happening. You recognize that. Because, see, normally we try to run away from it. We try to cover it over. We try to stuff it. We do whatever we can not to feel it. And what we're doing here is we're recognizing it first. You might even label it, perhaps label the emotion or label the thought that's going on, recognizing the stressful trigger itself and allowing it. This is probably a little more difficult part, allowing it to be as it is. See if you can just sit with it for a moment. Allow it to be there instead of doing something to fix it or ignore it or lots of other things that we typically try to do. Then the third step is to investigate your inner experience with kindness. And what that means simply is you just notice, like we did before, what's happening inside me. And if it's something that really bothers you, maybe you notice, like a real heaviness in your chest, or, a lot of scattered thoughts or negative thoughts, or, stomach distress, or, X, Y, or Z, whatever it is. Just investigate that with kindness and just notice, let it be there, explore it a little bit, give it some space. And then the final step, the end, is not anything that you have to do, but it's in going through those 3 steps, it can bring you to your own natural awareness. So in other words, not, through sort of your untriggered natural awareness, which could be considered more accepting. Or you can also think of it as non-identification, which simply means you're not identifying yourself with that stressful trigger, with how you're reacting to it. You're able to say, that's going on there, and that's not me, that's happening. My thoughts, my feelings, my body sensations are what I have control over. Okay, so you're not identifying with the stressful situation. Or the third N is nurturing. Just bringing in nurturing. This is okay. I can deal with this. I've dealt with these things before. So kind of nurturing yourself. And that's RAIN. So that's something also, there will be a link to RAIN as well that you can try to go through. It's one of the practices this coming week. So it's actually a lot to try this week. These are links here that there's a explanation of that, but it's pretty direct. There's one to a whole talk that Tara Brach does she explains on the 7-minute point. Actually, I think it's the first 7 minutes. She explains it if you want to listen to that again. And then coming back here, I don't know if you all had a chance, but I hope you listened to some of the attitude video with John Kabat-Zinn. There's one called Non-Striving, and it's kind of counterintuitive that with our mindfulness practice, we're not striving to get somewhere. We're not striving to achieve. Even though I've talked about intentions and the way that this can be helpful, we're not even necessarily striving to be relaxed. It may be relaxing, but it's more about accepting things in the moment as they are, rather than this striving, which again, it's counterintuitive because our whole society is built on achievement and striving. So kind of takes a little bit to not do that, but that's a good one to listen to if you haven't listened to the attitudes yet. So now what I'd like to do is do a quick practice called breaking the worry addiction. And what this is that we know that a lot of us sort of have become addicted to worry. And worry is kind of related to fear. Fear is an emotional state that arises in response to an immediate threat, right? Well, anxiety and worry is the emotional state that arises in response to an anticipated threat. The perception that things might go wrong, okay? And the thing is that they both have the same physiological response. And so worrying and anxiety, in a sense, can become addictive. We become caught up in that addiction of worrying. In some ways, it kind of helps us feel more in control because we have these thoughts, we analyze them, we try to pull everything apart, we try to problem solve. Well, with this whole approach, it's really different. We're not trying to do that. And so let me run you through this quick little practice. So just close your eyes and bring to mind something that makes you feel a little bit stressed. Doesn't have to be something big, okay? And when you bring that to mind, I'll give you a moment to just kind of bring something to mind. There's something in your daily life. Could be work-related or home-related. Something that you worry about. And notice the type of worry thoughts that arise. They might be planning or rehearsing or trying to figure something out. Or you might notice some type of judging. They might take the form of a voice in your head or some visual images. So when this happens, you can even mentally whisper to yourself, fear thinking or worry thinking, just to kind of label it. Labeling these things can be very helpful. Now, the next step is bring your awareness below your head and notice where you feel the most vulnerability in your body as you think about this stressor. You might notice pressure or tightness or heat or tension. You can check your throat, your chest, your neck. Just check it out. It takes a little bit of courage to do this because we're really facing it. And you might come back to the breath. You might, again, sense your breath. Let your breath be long and slow. And then the final step is to sense what message might be most comforting to yourself. What does your anxious, worrying self most need to hear? Perhaps it's okay. Perhaps it's I'm with you, or that's then and now is now, or you're fine in this moment. You can even, it might be helpful to place a hand over your heart as you do this, to kind of offer yourself a gesture of kindness, physical touch. And then you can bring yourself slowly back to your surroundings. You can ground yourself, feel your feet, feel the weight of your body in the chair, and open your eyes and just take a moment to notice what's changed. And that's a very good way to kind of break that cycle. Now, this may happen again and again. You may notice that there are lots of ways that we get triggered, and that worry addiction gets, that cycle comes back up. So you may have to practice that a number of times. So next, I want to introduce this idea of that our beliefs and what we think about our stress has a lot to do with this, how it affects us. Okay, so they did this study, and this is this link here if you want to watch it. We don't have time to watch it in the class, but it's a really good TED Talk. So it's about 15 minutes, but even the first 7 or 8 minutes, she talks about this study they did about stress. And essentially what they did was they asked 30,000 American adults, how stressed are you? And many, said very high levels of stress. And then they asked them, do you believe that stress is harmful to your health? And many people do believe that. We've been taught that, right? So do you believe that stress is harmful to your health? Then over 8 years, they looked at death records, and they found out, here's some of the bad news, they found out that people with high levels of stress had the highest risk of mortality. And so that's, we've heard many times that stress can affect our health. But here's the key. That was only true for people who believed that stress was harmful to their health. The people who didn't believe that had the lowest rates of risk of mortality, and in fact, had a better cardiovascular profile. And they went on, she goes on to talk about that you can teach people to respond better to stress, to get, in a sense, really get better at stress. And where it starts is our belief about stress and what we think about stress. And that if we realize that stress is the body's natural way of meeting a challenge, right? And that when we feel that stress, it might feel uncomfortable, but if we realize that bodily response in our thinking, that heightened in a actually it's the fight or flight response. That way that our body is reacting is getting our body ready to meet the challenges of whatever that situation is. Now, we've been conditioned this way for, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. And it's really ingrained in our way that we respond to fight or flight kinds of triggers. So it takes a little bit of doing. But if you start to challenge those beliefs and realize that you can get better at stress, that simple way of changing your perspective on stress can be really a game changer. And that's kind of what this is all about, is that realizing that we have some control in how we respond to stress. As you look at these quotes, I think get a sense of what I'm talking about. And remember, we often think that our thoughts are kind of, in a sense, especially if we have a lot of thoughts, and we know we have thousands of thoughts every day, and many of them are in fact repetitive thoughts. So if we can begin to be aware of our thoughts, and this is what we're going to practice in the meditation, being aware of our thoughts and realizing that they're just mental events. They're not essentially who we are. There are things that get, out of the mind. The mind generates thoughts, like I said before, like our body generates enzymes. But we can choose which thoughts are helpful. We can step back from them. We can be aware of which thoughts are unhelpful. And so you'll see how that works in the meditation. But it really brings up the idea that our thoughts can be our friends. And it's the first area where we can make a dent, in a sense, in how we respond to stressful situations. And it's our thinking. And now you might have noticed in the first 2 weeks that you had a lot of thoughts. Maybe there were a lot of thoughts when you did the breath meditation or the body scan. And that's okay. We're not trying to get rid of thoughts, okay? We're trying to notice thoughts and come back to the anchor, in which case it's either the breath or the body. Come back to that anchor. And that sort of interrupts that whole thought association. It interrupts the autopilot. It interrupts being lost in thought. What we're going to do today in this meditation is different. We're going to notice thoughts, and instead of immediately coming back to the anchor, we're going to be curious about them. We're not going to be triggered by them, but we're going to observe what thoughts come and go. And so let's do the meditation. And it's real easy. It's a little different, but it's real easy, and just kind of follow along as I lead you through it. All right, so take a moment to settle yourself, find a comfortable position and posture. Allow your body to settle. Let your mind be at ease. You might take 2 or 3 nice full breaths, inhaling deeply and exhaling slowly to sense the breath more fully in your body. Now, as the breath resumes its natural cycle, bring a relaxed and focused attention to your primary anchor of the breath or the body sensations. And for the next minute, imagine you're watching for thoughts, just as a cat might wait, intent and alert, at the entrance to a mouse hole for the mouse to appear. When a thought appears, count it, whether it's a mental image or some auditory commentary or a movie clip with pictures and words. Just count it. So continue in this way, waiting at the mouse hole. counting thoughts as they appear. Now take a deep breath and slowly exhale. And perhaps you notice just a few thoughts, maybe 4 or 5, or maybe a lot of thoughts, 15, 20. There's no right or wrong here. Maybe you noticed that there weren't many thoughts and realized, oh, that's a thought. You're noticing, and that's the essence of mindfulness. Now we'll continue on and adding the recognition of thoughts into our basic mindfulness practice. So again, reestablish your home base, feel the breath or the body, relaxing yourself as fully as you can with the sensations of the inflow and outflow of the breath. Now let your intention be simply to stay with your primary anchor, with your home base, until thoughts pull you away when they arise. And as you've been doing, once you notice the thoughts occurring, just acknowledge them and then let go, gently landing again at your anchor, relaxed and present. Observe your thoughts. Let them come and go as mental events. Don't attach to them. Just let them pass by as if they're a cloud going by in the sky, or a leaf drifting away on a stream. But if you do get carried away or lost in thought, that's fine too. Just it's part of what happens with our minds. If that happens, just notice that. Notice what pulled you away. Let it go and come back to your anchor of the breath or the body. You can sort of see a thought and maybe even touch it, but don't be caught up in the thought. Separate the thought from who you are. We can retrain our whole mental attitude by first learning to recognize thought patterns, perhaps even calmly naming them simply as planning, remembering, or fantasizing, worrying, or dwelling, or liking. Once we recognize them, we can remind ourselves that they're just visiting. They're not essentially who we are. We couldn't stop them from visiting, but we can let them go even if they return many times. We don't have to invite them to move in. And we can choose to nurture and stay with the thoughts that are helpful and let go of the ones that are not. And even if unpleasant thoughts hijack our attention, we can step back from them, simply observing their nature. And when we're ready, letting them go and returning to the breath or the body as an anchor to the present moment. Now we'll close with this verse from the poet Wu Men. 10,000 flowers in spring, the moon in autumn, a cool breeze in summer, snow in winter. If your mind isn't clouded by unnecessary things, this is the best season of your life. And so you can open your eyes if you've had them closed and kind of re-engage with your surroundings. And you might want to stretch or move if that's helpful. And that's the thought meditation. As I said, a little different. And so there will be a link. This actual link right here is one of them. This goes back to our meditation page. And while I'm finishing up, if you have any reactions or comments about that particular meditation, please let me know. I'm curious to know what you thought about that. And I'm going to what your daily practices are. So your formal practice is either the rain meditation or the thought meditation. You can alternate those, or you can even try the break the worry meditation. Now, the break the worry meditation is not recorded. So I'm going to send you the script of that. But you can try either one of those as your formal practice. Then the informal practice is the 3-minute breathing space once or twice a day in response to a stressor, or the stop. Either one. You can do either one of those as sort of the informal practice. Now, remember, I didn't ask you this before, but remember last week I asked you to notice how you react to pleasant events. This week, I want you to notice how you experience and process unpleasant events. Okay? So that's that's sort of an intriguing way to kind of notice how we respond to, you did pleasant before, now unpleasant. Sometimes people say, oh, it's more common to have unpleasant events in life these days. So how do you react to them? Maybe note down, maybe share that with your buddy. And here are the links. So you'll have all these in there. There's I have a few handouts for you this week. So there's a couple of handouts. These are all brief. There's a couple of other articles there online and a video if you have time for those. But here are the practice links. These are there's the rain meditation, meditation on thoughts, and the 3-minute breathing space. All right, so yes, here's good, nice comments here. Loved it, very helpful. Letting go of thoughts relieves the knot in my stomach. Good, excellent. I see a lot of colors, beautiful, thank you. Interesting, good. Naming it helped it dissolve and create a pause to even discover if it was the full truth. Very good. That's it. That's what I'm talking about. Like, oh, I can choose or shift. Yep, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Being aware is good to reflect on our thoughts and feelings. Yes, I mean, that's really kind of, just in itself, this is where kind of the rubber meets the road. Next week, we're going to talk about thoughts as they lead and are associated to emotions. And we'll even talk about, dealing with difficult emotions. So that's what we'll be talking about next week. So any last minute questions before I let you go? And make sure that you put in the chat if you want credit for the attendance for the Know Your Numbers. I'll be, once I close the recording, which will be in just a moment, I will be writing down, jotting down, checking off the attendance. So if you have any questions, I'll be there for a few minutes afterwards as well. Good. Any questions, folks? All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me again. And I wish you a good mindful week, and may not take away the stress, but I hope some of these things will be helpful in dealing with and stepping back from some of the stress. So take care. Wish you well.